Spring Television. Ours it is.
Good evening and welcome to Spring Global on Western Spring Television. Now the headlines. JAMB has announced a new date for 2023 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examinations. Outside Nigeria, at least 5 people have been injured in Marseille after a 4-story residential building collapsed. 2 killed after Russian missiles strike a house in southeastern Ukrainian city. My name is Opeyemioni. The Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board has announced a new date for the commencement of a 2023 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination. The board disclosed this in a statement signed by its head of Public Affairs and Protocol, Fabian Benjamin, in Abuja today. Benjamin said the UTME, which was earlier scheduled to commence on April 29th, will now start on April 25th, 2023. He also said the board would hold its rescheduled mock UTME on April 18th, 2023. He said candidates who were present and screened for the examination but could not sit for it had been rescheduled to retake the mock examination on April 18th. In Nasarawa State, police authorities have arrested 1 inmate that escaped during last year's attack on the Kuje Correctional Center in Abuja. Police Populations Officer Rahman Nansel disclosed this in a statement today, identifying the escapee inmate as 24-year-old Salisu Buhari, a native of Nasarawa State. Also arrested alongside Buhari during a sting operation in Nasarawa local government area of the state was 27-year-old Zubairu Ali. A police spokesman said both suspects were nabbed last Thursday for motorcycle theft. Meanwhile, the Commissioner of Police, Meyaki Baba, has ordered the transfer of the case to the State Criminal Investigation Department, Lafia, for an exhaustive investigation. A 34-year-old South American man from Suriname, Dada Albert, has been arrested by operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, at the Port Harcourt International Airport, Port Harcourt, Rivers State, for bringing into Nigeria 117 parcels of cocaine concealed in extra-large latex condoms factory packed inside bottles of 100 ml body spray. The suspect claimed he departed his country on 2nd of April for Brazil and then to Nigeria on Friday, 7th April 2023, on board Qatar Airways flight in search of his long-lost Nigerian father, whom it called Omini. Similarly, NDLEA officers at Tinkan Seaport in Lagos have intercepted 110 parcels of Colorado, a strain of cannabis weighing 55 kilograms eaten in a container from Toronto through Montreal, Canada. The illicit consignment was discovered in the container bearing 5 units of used vehicles during a joint examination of a cargo by NDLEA and other port stakeholders. Similarly, 2 suspects, Abubakar Abdullahi and Stanley Tobias, were arrested on Friday with 108,000 tablets of tramadol at Oyinbo Motor Park in Lagos mainland.
Yes, lift it up so that you cut from the top.
You didn't destroy.
Cut it open clearly so that. Where are you dropping this thing?
Huh? Is this?
With your umbrella.
In the meantime, Bishop of Osogbo Catholic Diocese, Most Reverend John Oyejola, has asked Christians to be hopeful as they celebrate Easter. While speaking in an interview with Western Spring Television News, he described the period as one that should be filled with love and sacrifice. Most Reverend Oyejola called on Christians to live fully and imbibe the lessons of kindness and sacrifice.
Easter brought joy, happiness, and hope to humanity. when all hope were lost, it was then Jesus Christ came to reinstate hope for humanity. God created man from the beginning to be his friend, to interact with him and live with him. But because of man's freedom, wrong choices were made, and then they committed sin. Number one, for us Catholic, Easter is the last beginning of the journey. You start from Holy Thursday, when Jesus instituted the priesthood, those who will be leading people to God regularly. He instituted the Holy Eucharist, the presence of himself under the appearance of bread and wine, which will be energy for humanity on the journey, is food for the journey back to God. And because Jesus suffered and died on Good Friday, resurrected on Sunday, so we look at that as a package. What is God saying to us? What is the goal of our creation from beginning? He wants us back to him. So the goal is that everybody should be back to God, to try to live the life of innocence that God created us to be from beginning. Loving God, loving our neighbor, and serving them. That's all. Like I said, Holy Thursday, Jesus washed the feet of his apostles, telling us that service to humanity brings meaning to life. So ask yourself, what is the meaning of life if you possess everything? But you have to look at how does your life impact on other people positively. That is then you are saying that you are making meaning. So people, anybody believing in Christ, it's good to eat and drink. You can do that at any given time. But you have to ask questions. Why am I eating and drinking at this particular timing?
Outside Nigeria, the collapse of a 4-story residential building in Marseille today left at least 5 people from surrounding structures injured, but the fire was preventing rescue workers in the search for victims. The collapse of the building in the port city of southern France occurred around 12:40 a.m., damaging parts of the 2 surrounding buildings, according to Marseille Mayor Benoit Payan. So far, 5 people were injured from 2 residences next to the collapsed building in the central La Plaine district. The streets around the collapsed building were cordoned off and choked with dust, while firefighters could be seen attempting to work their way through the building debris. More than 30 children have been reunited with their families in Ukraine this week after a long operation to bring them back from Russia, where they had been taken from occupied areas during the war. Kiev has estimated nearly 19,500 children have been taken to Russia since Moscow invaded in February last year, in what it condemns as illegal deportations. Moscow, which controls parts of Ukraine's east and south, has denied abducting children and said they have been transported away for their own safety. On Friday, the Save Ukraine charity said the children and their relatives had crossed the border into Kiev-controlled territory. According to released footage, the children who carried suitcases and bags crossed the border on foot and later boarded a bus to continue their journey. To security matters, a 50-year-old man and his 11-year-old daughter were killed after Russian missiles struck a house in the southeastern Ukrainian city of Zaporizhia. It was the latest Russian strike on civilian infrastructure in Ukraine as Moscow's invasion stretches into its 2nd year. The head of Zaporizhia City Council, Anatoly Kutyev, said the girl died in an ambulance while rescue workers pulled the girl's 46-year-old mother alive from under the rubble. Kutyev said 2 Russian missiles struck a residential building, adding that windows and roofs were damaged in dozens of neighboring houses. The region of Zaporizhia is one of the 4 Ukrainian provinces Russian President Vladimir Putin claims to have annexed last year.
Что, выносит? Аккуратно выносим. Освободить, да.
In Asia, the Iraqi government has called on Turkey to apologize for an attack on an airport in the country's northern Kurdish region, while a U.S. official confirmed there had been an attack on a convoy with U.S. military personnel in the area, but there were no casualties. The Iraqi demand came as a Turkish Defense Ministry official told journalists that no Turkish armed forces operation are taking place in that region in recent days. Iraq's presidency said the attack on Friday took place in the vicinity of the Sulaymaniyah airport in the semi-autonomous Kurdish region, denouncing it as a flagrant aggression against its sovereignty. It said Ankara had no legal justification to continue intimidating civilians under the pretext that forces hostile to it are present on Iraqi soil. Turkey, which has spent decades fighting Kurdish armed groups in its east, has conducted several military operations, including air raids in northern Iraq and northern Syria against Kurdish-led forces there. In Africa, Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has vowed to dismantle regional forces established by some states, warning that law enforcement measures will be taken against any destructive opposition. The initiative, first announced on Thursday, aims to integrate such forces, which were set up unilaterally by some states, into the federal army, regional police, or civilian life. Ethiopia's constitution allows its 11 states, drawn up along linguistic and cultural lines, to operate their own regional police forces. But over the last 15 years, some states have gradually established separate forces, acting outside these constitutional constraints. In a statement published on his Twitter account today, Abiy said Ethiopia had encountered difficulties in relation to regional special forces, pointing out the existence of illegal checkpoints, smuggling, and banditry. Following a visit to Ethiopia last month, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said Amhara forces had committed ethnic cleansing by forcibly transferring people out of Western Tigray. You're watching Spring Global on Western Spring Television. We'll be right back after this break.
Funmilayo Ransome Kuti was an educationist and advocate of women's rights. She was recognized for her vitriolic comments against colonial policy of taxation as it affected the Nigerian women. Bere, as fondly addressed by her women followers, Funmilayo championed the initiation of universal adult suffrage, which gave an unprecedented leeway for women to contest elective offices and power to exercise voting rights. Married to a foremost educationist and teacher, Israel Oladotun Ransome Kuti, the first president of Nigeria Union of Teachers, Funmilayo Ransome Kuti was the mother of children who inherited her spirit of activism. Olufela and Be Ololari, the former, a renowned musical legend. She was the first female student of Abeokuta Grammar School and the first female to own and drive a car in Nigeria. The award recipient of Member of Order of Nigeria MON and Lenin Peace Prize, was born on 25th October 1900 and was killed on the 13th April 1978 by rampaging road soldiers in Lagos. Western Spring Television identifies Funmilayo Ransome Kuti as a watershed character in history. Born Jeremiah Oyeni Obafemi on March 6, 1905, Obafemi Awolowo was a prime architect of Nigeria's independence and most consummate advocate of free education and social welfare in Africa's most populous nation. Erudite politician, thinker, and philosopher, Awo was fondly addressed by associates and political colleagues, brought his unique attributes to bear on governance in the defunct Western region. He administered as leader of government business and the premier between 1955 and 1958. Obafemi Awolowo's premiership witnessed pioneering in multi-sectoral policy initiatives and execution. The Western region under his administration paraded several enviable records. First television station in Africa, first real estate in Nigeria, first high-rise building in Nigeria, first modern sports stadium in Nigeria, first agricultural settlement in Nigeria, first modern civil service secretariat in Nigeria, and first industrial estate in Nigeria. His face is on 100 Naira denomination as a mark of honor for his distinguished services to his country. Western Spring Television identifies Obafemi Awolowo as a major character in history.
Welcome back on Spring Global on Western Spring Television. Now to the rest of the stories. In the Middle East, the Israeli military says it has launched artillery attacks on Syria after several rockets were fired from Syrian territory towards northern Israel, none of which caused damage or casualties. The cross-border exchanges earlier today came as Israel escalates violence on multiple fronts, including in Gaza, Lebanon, occupied East Jerusalem, and the occupied West Bank. Syrian defense officials claim that air defenses have responded to the strikes and successfully intercepted some of the missiles. It added that no casualties had been reported, with only material damage caused by the strikes. In the meantime, two British-Israeli sisters killed in the shooting in the occupied West Bank have been named as Maya and Rina Day. The sisters were killed on Friday afternoon near the Amra Junction in the north of the Jordan Valley as they drove to Tiberias. The mother, Leah, remains in a critical condition in hospital. Their father, Rabbi Day, said 2 bullets had been removed from his wife's spine and neck during surgery. Maya was 20 and volunteering for national service in a high school, while younger sister, Rina, was 15. Their car was driven off the road after being shot at by gunmen, while their father had been driving ahead in a separate vehicle. Elsewhere, China's military has staged simulated joint precision strikes on key targets in Taiwan during a second day of drills launched near the island in the wake of Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen's brief visit to the United States. The announcement today came as Taiwan's defense ministry said it had detected 11 Chinese warships and 70 aircraft around the island. The ministry said it was responding to the Chinese drills in a calm and composed manner, adding that the warplanes detected until 4 p.m. local time included a mix of fighter jets and bombers. China, which claims democratically governed Taiwan as its own, began the 3 days of military exercises around the island yesterday, the day after Tsai Ing-wen returned from the U.S., where she held a meeting with the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy. Chinese state television reported the combat readiness patrols and drills around Taiwan were continuing. A Saudi Arabian delegation is in Yemen's capital, Sana'a, for talks with the Houthi rebel movement aimed at reaching a new and potentially permanent ceasefire. The capital has been controlled by the Houthis since they drove the Yemeni government out in 2015. Soon after, what erupted between the Houthis and the Saudi-led coalition supporting the government. It has continued ever since, leaving tens of thousands of Yemenis dead and some 80% of the population relying on aid. No official confirmation has been made by the Saudi side yet, but Houthi outlets say both the Saudi and Omani delegations are in Sana'a. In other news, India's tiger population has climbed to 3,167 in 2022, according to the latest census released by Prime Minister Narendra Modi as the country celebrates 50 years of its tiger conservation project. From 2006 to 2018, the tiger numbers almost doubled to 2,967 and are now well above 3,000, according to census data released today in the nation that is home to 70% of the world's tigers. Project Tiger began in 1973 after a census of the big cats found India's tigers were quickly going extinct through habitat loss, unregulated sport hunting, increased poaching, and retaliatory killings by local people. Tiger reserves have gone up to 53 from the original 9 when the tiger conservation effort was launched. Moving on, the last surviving prosecutor from the post-World War II Nuremberg trials died aged 103. Ben Ferenc was just 27 when he secured the convictions of Nazi officers for war crimes and crimes against humanity. He later advocated for the establishment of an international court to prosecute war crimes, a goal realized in 2002. Ferenc died peacefully in his sleep on Friday evening at an assisted living facility in Boynton Beach, Florida. Confirming his death, the U.S. Holocaust Museum said the world had lost a leader in the quest for justice for victims of genocide. And now talking sport, Israel Adesanya has reclaimed the UFC middleweight title after coldly knocking Alex Pereira out in the main event of UFC 287. It took 2 rounds for Adesanya to bring down his opponent at the FTX Arena in Miami, Florida. This was the 4th fight between the pair, with Pereira beating Adesanya twice in kickboxing before following the Nigerian New Zealander into mixed martial arts, where he took Adesanya's UFC title with a TKO in November. However, tables turned this morning as Adesanya from nowhere pulled the knockout blow, sending Pereira crashing on the floor. Pereira was initially on the offense, unleashing body hooks and a knee to the ribs, with Adesanya backed against the cage, but the challenger threw a right hook out of the blues, and the Brazilian was on a downward spiral afterwards.
Ooh, big left hand for Adesanya.
Put his guard up high and winged him. Oh, there's that right hand. Ooh, that one hurt him. That one hurt him. You saw him buckle with that low kick. Again. Pereira, so damn goodness. Out. Let's take a look at it again. He gets hit with that low kick, covers up. Pereira's moving in.
I told you the hunter is now the hunted. I told him this before. Thank you. Thank you for all what you've done. Thank you for beating me, because beating me, he made me a better fighter, a better person. In this camp, I didn't around. If you know me, you know I like a vacation, but I didn't around. I stayed on the grind and I put myself through it. You be seeing me on Freestyle Bender on YouTube. I've been putting it. I don't put my highlights on the gram. I put the work. I get tired. So that way when I'm in here, I don't get tired.
American professional golfer Tiger Woods has pulled out of the Masters with a fitness issue. Competition organizers disclosed today that Tiger Woods has officially withdrawn from the Masters after completing 7 holes of his 3rd round due to injury. In a statement on his Twitter account today, Woods said he aggravated a previous plantar fasciitis injury in his right foot, the same injury that caused the 5-time Masters champion to withdraw from the Hero World Challenge, an unofficial event he hosts in the Bahamas in February. The 47-year-old Woods was limping badly as he played many of the first 8 holes of a 3rd round in the downpour yesterday. Before we end Spring Global, here's a recap of our top stories. The Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board has announced a new date for the commencement of the 2023 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examinations. Outside Nigeria, the collapse of a 4-story residential building in Marseille today left at least 5 people from surrounding structures injured, but the fire was preventing rescue workers in the search for victims. A 40-year-old man and his 11-year-old daughter were killed after Russian missiles struck a house in the southeastern Ukrainian city of Zaporizhia. The can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. I am Okoye Munich. Thanks for watching.
God, we look to you tonight. Above the singing, God, above the music, above the songs, let your name be lifted high, Jesus.